councillors and officers for joining us in today's meeting. Please be aware that the council is videoing this meeting and it will be uploaded onto the YouTube channel as usual. I'd like to highlight some of the key points of the format. Please can I ask everybody to have their phones turned off to silent. If councillors have any concerns about hearing or seeing others in the meeting, please let me or a council officer know straight away. Fire exits are clearly marked, 2 in this room being the closest. Assembly point is the gas patio outside near the patio. Please remain seated unless you are invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. And the toilet facilities are down the corridor. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting with the key points as follows. When the public participation agenda item is introduced, please raise your hand to show that you wish to speak, and I'll invite you to speak. If you're comfortable standing, please do so in order to ensure that you can be heard across the room. Public participation is limited to 4 minutes a person and must be relating to an item of business on the agenda. And you don't need to state your name when you start speaking if you don't wish to, but we ask you that you clearly state which agenda item you're speaking about. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of an agenda item in order to limit distractions for other participants. And to all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible in order to let others follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state point of order, and I will then gesture you to elaborate. If anyone present is felt to be behaving unacceptably, they will be ejected from the meeting by resolution. Thank you for listening, and on behalf of the council, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this council meeting. Right, disclosure of interest. Right, okay, apologies. Consider apologies for absence. We have Councillor Jeff Rutland due to work commitments. Is there anyone else who has apologised? Any substitutes? No. Okay. Right, second is disclosure of interests. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interest or interest other than pecuniary interest as defined by the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Councillor Morraven.
Agenda item 9, the Armed Forces PE Day. I am chair of the Armed Forces committee. Although I've got my councillor hat on for that, but also to other organisations.
Thank you very much for that. Now, the next item I wish to discuss is that the first 2 agenda items, so agenda 4. I just wanted to inform the public that agenda items 4 and 5 have been removed, so that we will not be taking comments about those if you have any. So, agenda item 3, public participation, to deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and Seaford Town Council policy. Do we have any public participation comments? Right, the lady on the right first and the gentleman on the left second, please. Are you able to stand?
Yeah.
That would help enormously with the acoustics.
Start out by standing anyway.
Thank you.
Right. Hello, I'm Linda, and I live in Seaford South. I'm semi-retired, evidence-based research consultant. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm a bit croaked. And I've been associated with council concerns since it began. It's quite unusual for me to come to a meeting to urge councillors to support a recommendation rather than actually go get to oppose it, which is what I want to do to generate item 8. Do you still agenda item 8?
Yeah. Yes.
We've still got 8, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully some of you will have had time to read my comments already submitted, but I know that's quite a job sometimes when you're busy. So I wanted to come in person just to put a bit more context around it. So I strongly urge that the recommendation made is accepted, as I think it would be improper to devolve public control of the public asset to the Seaford Town Football Club, for many reasons, which I'll just touch on briefly. I mean, there are numerous examples, all evidenced and documented, relating to the club's non-compliance, neglecting and not honouring their existing responsibilities. So given that background, I really can't see it would be appropriate to actually invite them to have more responsibilities, or actually to award more freedom and control. And in the past 2 weeks alone, we've seen even more incoherent statements coming from the club in regard to the pitch in the area, which I know isn't on the agenda tonight, but I think it just shows and demonstrates such chaotic, inconsistent thinking that lacks any evidence at all. So, I really can't stress the potential risks and consequences of awarding the club with more control, and particularly over the maintenance of the pitch area. The history of maverick behaviour, non-compliance, and actually blatant disregard for the other crouch users has been quite appalling and very stressful for some. And a lot of this led to the tensions that still unfortunately exist within the community. And I don't think it should be underestimated or indeed overlooked. And I think also it's worth remembering that the crouch users are the majority of people in the local neighbourhood, and they use the field 365 days a year compared with those who attend the crouch for football activities. But having said all that, I think that somebody's missing a trick with all of this, because I genuinely do believe that there are real opportunities to bring harmony between all users of the crouch and stop rumours and false beliefs that currently exist in regard to who owns the pitch. So to devolve, another reason, if you devolve responsibility for pitch maintenance, I think that would send totally the wrong messages and reinforce the false beliefs that currently exist about ownership of that area, and that the football club also enjoys special privileges from the town council, which must be remembered at all times it's a public asset to be shared by all users. And we hear such a lot of noise coming out of everywhere about engaging with the community. I think it's time it happened. That's it.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Right. Thank you very much. Okay, and we've had some written comments from you as well.
Yeah.
Into consideration. So thank you very much for your input. It's much appreciated. The gentleman to our left, which agenda item would you like?
Thank you.
That's
Am I not to your right?
Sorry?
Am I not to your right? Sorry, you said
Oh,
gentleman.
to
Oh,
the
to the
left.
other right, okay. Sorry. Hi.
I don't know where he is for.
Yeah.
That's all right, she knows the right from the left, don't you worry.
Well, yeah, we could debate that actually, but I've only got 4 minutes. Retired Police Chief Inspector and a member of Crouch Concerns, and I know some of you have heard me speak on these things before, and obviously I'm referring to the maintenance agenda item. Let's look at some of the issues about community-minded football club. And I've got clear documented evidence of my assertions, and I can provide that on request. In the last couple of years, they've committed licensing offences in relation to their social premises licence, having paid events, people not members or bona fide guests being there, planning contravention, the adverts were put up without planning permission, the lights, the floodlights were on and off without, in contravention of the planning guidelines, because they were clearly have to report exact times of use, which they didn't, and there's a question mark of whether they still do. Bylaw contravention, the marquee was put up for months on end. The previous chair made false allegations of criminal damage in the local paper to progress the case for the 8-foot fence. Previous chair made a false statement in application for funds to repair the roof from the football foundation. They failed to comply with the lease conditions in relation to their social licence and other conditions. STFC are still accepting sponsorship from a company whose previous chief executive is inside for 15 years for a £30 million fraud. So Century, blazoned upon little kiddies' shirts, yeah? Previous chief executive is inside for a £30 million fraud. Are they underpaying rent on the pitch? Certainly there's a question mark as to how much income Ivy Verdi has actually had for the amount of alleged use of the pitch. All the little kiddies running around it all the time. Are they paying the rent? Question mark. Threats made on social media via local pages to beat up those opposed to the fence. Threats made on social media to burn down surrounding houses. Even threats made to kill my dog, who was on the pitch on one occasion. CCTV regulations are not being complied with. There is no ICO registration. So they're running CCTV as a business, as a social event, not as private individuals, and they haven't got the right regs, and we question whether they've got any GDPR or any guidelines whatsoever. And Seaford Town Council were, according to the town clerk, going to get a grip of this. And things are still woolly and opaque. STC have paid 5k in the past for STFC to do their own maintenance. And that was not a success. £5,000 on top of the stuff STC were already paying to Ivy Verdi to maintain the pitch. Like STC have also given £5,000 for an infill fence, which within 2 or 3 years has fallen to bits. Hasn't lasted. That's 10 grand so far. In my view, and in the view of a lot of crowd concern users, STFC cannot be trusted. And I would commend you do not let them at any stage have their own maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, I thought what I might do is I might change the order of the agenda around a little bit. If we've got a small number of the public here, and if you're here for one item mostly, I'm happy to have agenda item, which is now 8, the football club maintenance, if that's helpful.
That's very kind, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, okay. So, this is to provide an update on the 1-year pitch maintenance trial conducted by City Town Football Club at the Crouch and to note the trial's conclusion, and we're asked to note the contents and confirm the responsibilities.
Yeah, so Chair, I'm happy to briefly introduce the report. I'm very grateful to the Head of Assets, Project and Services for her report that Council see in front of you. As the report explains, it explains when the permission was given, but it explains that things took a while to get started for various reasons around compliance, and then eventually the football club did do maintenance for around a year up until this summer, but that the council are proposing the arrangement is then brought to an end after the 1-year trial, and it reverts back to Ivy Verdi hold the grounds maintenance contracts for all such spaces on behalf of the Lewis District Council, who are the actual responsible organisation for that arrangement. So that's all set out within the report, Chair, so I think we're happy to take any questions or comments from councillors. Thank you.
Okay, any comments or questions? Councillor Honeyman, Honeyman?
Yes, I'd like to say I'm glad this is going back to the Town Council to do with the grounds maintenance contract. The only thing I wanted to add is after what happened a couple of months ago where we had the issue about potentially and it was basically announced on Facebook which wasn't helpful if no one was on Facebook. So I would just wonder whether that's one of the conditions with the contractor, the new, our existing one, is that any weed killing that gets done, there's notifications done in the actual park, the Crouch Gardens. If that's something that can actually be made sure that people, the residents are aware that if anything is done on the pitch, you know, just so that people are aware, if that can be put into the maintenance thing, please.
Thank you.
Councillor Richard.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's just, if you can remind me, obviously if the STC does take the maintenance back in again in-house, does that mean that basically the entire Crouch again is basically in-house, so all the surrounds? So the surrounds of the pitch is done by in-house, obviously the bowling club is all in-house, the land near the community gardens is in-house, isn't it? So basically the entire lot will be back in-house, and it might be easier than trying to split it anyway, for now, at least for now anyway. So is that correct?
Yes, so
Yeah.
all of Seaford Town Council's ground maintenance responsibilities are fulfilled by Lewes District Council. We have a long-term contract arrangement with Lewes District Council to deliver those services. Lewes District Council then awarded the contract for the actual delivery to ID Verdi. So it's a sort of tripartite arrangement where ID Verdi are undertaking the work under a contractual arrangement with Lewes District, under arrangement managed by Lewes District Council, and Lewes District Council hold the contract and grounds maintenance from Seaford Town Council.
I'm happy, thank you very much.
Councillor Markwell.
Hello, thank you very much. Yes, I mean, certainly would support the proposal to bring it back in. I think communication is incredibly important, and Councillor Olivia Honeyman mentioned about the weed killer, which was a bit of a debacle on Facebook, and so it should have been. I think one of the things that's going to be incredibly important is that we do keep an eye on Facebook, we do keep an eye on social media. If we've got all this land that is covering so much of the population in so many different ways, of course there's going to be chatter on Facebook. A lot of it is very positive. But I think even if we feel there is negative chatter, we should still be very, very aware of it and try and get our heads around what's happening. So I think we should be quite proactive, that if things are starting to brew or something comes up like weed killer, we have the facility to respond and investigate fairly fast, because the problem with that is it puts the residents in a very negative position because they don't know what's true and what isn't true. So I think if we are holding that responsibility, I do suggest that we look into how we might manage that. And I know that's about staffing, so I can't tell staff what to do, but I do think we need to be just aware of the fact that things can get a little bit out of hand in terms of communication, and we need to be totally ahead of the game, really, if we are holding all this land with all these different varieties of responsibilities and residents that are going to have concerns, and we need to be aware of those and support them and communicate well.
Councillor Bristol.
Thank you. To follow on from Councillors Honeyman and Councillor Markwell, particularly the sentiment about communication, I was, by definition, I suppose, as a ward councillor, heavily involved with what's locally become to be known as Weed Killer Gate in early June. Now, I say that slightly tongue-in-cheek, but it has stuck even now. And on the note of communication, I think it's absolutely impractical to expect staff to monitor everything about Facebook and anything that's said about town council land. However, I take the sentiment, and I think the issue with the communication here, and one of the main hooks why I would support the recommendation of this report coming back in-house, is that it appears to me that this was a prime example of the communication between our tenants, the football club, and us as landowners, not working particularly well this time from the football club, in that it wasn't just chatter, they had made a public announcement on their Facebook page and copied it to notice board that weed killer was going to be applied and that people and dogs should stay off the pitch. Now, I don't believe that that's up to them to be telling the public when to and when not to go on a public open space that's owned by the town council. I would expect a due process, if it was ever permitted, to be for them to come to the town council and the officers who, when we got in touch, this happened, I think it was overnight, the next day were very much on the ball and contacting the football club for information and trying to sort it out. So I have to say in this case, thank you very much to the officers for your swift response. Nevertheless, the damage had already been done, and I walked in the Crouch daily for 7 to 10 days after that, and believe me when I say it was a deathly hush in there. The regulars, the normal people that you would see out walking were not there. People were scared. People were contacting me and other councillors asking what on earth is going on. So I think, you know, in this case, it is that landowner-tenant relationship and the expectations there of communication and so on. And my hope is that in this case, it's brought in-house. However, I would say to the football club, it's only natural for them to want to have a better playing pitch and to make sure that it's as up to scratch as it can be. I know it's not an ideal pitch, it sits at a level and at the end of the day it is a public pitch and theoretically anyone can hire it. However, of course they want to have it as best as they can, and the town clerk will correct me if I'm incorrect in this, but I believe our grounds maintenance contract is coming around for renewal in 2026, so as one of the stakeholders, they attend the Crouch stakeholder group, that I would encourage them to engage with the town council to tell us their needs and see how they can best be met, because obviously we do want to support football in a proper way, whether it's them or others. I think that was everything that I was going to say on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I do remember when this came to us in the first place to ask for the Seaford Town Council Football Club wanting to take over the grounds maintenance, and we were presented with all sorts of evidence about how the ground was terrible, they were never going to be able to go up the rankings, there was potential dog poo all over it, worm cast, there was everything. It was in a terrible state. So, and now obviously what's going to happen, they quite happily give it up, and take it back to ID Verdi. Presumably it's going to go back to not being a very good pitch again because they haven't taken it up. So I don't understand what the problem was in the first place. I'm glad. I think we should take it back under our own wing. It gives us much more control. But I think we bent over backwards to try and enable our local football club to improve their ground so that they could improve their rankings, etc. I don't think it's unjustified that we did that. I think we did it in good faith to try and help the football club. As landowners, we could only do that. I hope that when we take it back under our own wing, we can get the ground to as good a condition as we can within the restraints that obviously they have found. It's a difficult pitch and they'll never get it up to maybe such a level they like it. Anyway, I'm very glad, and I would propose that we do take it back into our own hands. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Honeyman, I think this will be the last question.
Yeah, that's fine, sorry. I know it's not quite relevant, but well, it is relevant. We get asked by residents about when they can see when other people are using the pitch. And it's not very easy to find the information out because now ID Verdi do the bookings. I have raised this previously before with other officers. If it's possible that, I don't know where to find it because I've looked on the ID, I was given the link to look for the ID Verdi to see how to actually book everything. But where can residents actually see what's been booked on the pitch? Because I know I went to an event a little while ago and everything that's booked, you can see what's going on when. And I know that's a question that residents have raised before, that, what's going on when. I don't know if that's a possibility to make it easier for people to see. Whether that can be done via ID Verdi or anything like that.
Sure. Does anyone know that?
They always looked after Seaford Town Council's bookings.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a new process, but to see who booked it, that would be a new process that we would have to look into to see how we would be able
Or at least
to.
when there's other events going on besides the football club using it or something.
At the moment we haven't got any other bookings apart from the football club coming through. But yeah, we'd have to look with ID Verdi of how we could have a system to share all of that information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, then,
So are you adding any
I might not.
comments?
Might be.
Councillor Dubba?
I might be. I asked officers a couple of weeks ago how a resident could book the football pitch, and I've not received a response. There's nothing on the website to show how to do it. There's nothing on ID Verdi's website to show how to do it. So I would like an answer to my question, please.
Shall we leave that to you? Could perhaps report back?
We can have a look at the
Councillor
website.
Dubba?
and,
Yes, I think that's important.
Make sure that it's on there.
Okay.
it does add to, it does add to
Please,
something.
please do.
I'll stand this time, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's interesting about communication. I mean, interesting that it's difficult to know who's actually using the pitch. But even the football club themselves, about their own matches, where's the definitive site? Who updates that? We don't know. When matches get shown, and they do for various reasons, you don't even know the right place to look sometimes. It's really confusing. I honestly, it's a shame the way the football club's not here. But they're obviously in charge of their fixture list when they're on. But when they do move stuff, half the time they don't change everything, and it's very, very confusing to know when it's actually on. I don't know if the town council will ever get queries on this side of things, but I've had a few examples of the last season where I thought there was a match on, hoping to go down and see it, no, nothing. So I don't know if that's something you can follow up. Thank you.
Is this adding something else?
Yeah. Yeah, just quickly, so in partial response to that, for the in the planning conditions for the floodlights, there was a planning condition that I believe it's the district council and the town council, but it's certainly the town, well, it must be both actually, because they're the planning authority, that they're informed of all the matches, and they're all the first team matches, not just the evening matches. Of course, there are other matches played and training played and all that kind of thing. So the first team matches are put on the gates of the crouch as you come in, and they have been reasonably good at updating those. Obviously, especially towards the end of the season, there can be some sort of last minute changes with weather and playoffs and all that stuff. And I know they're quite good at updating social media, but I think there is scope to slightly improve that loop back to at least the town council website so that we've got everything completely updated. As for the other use of the pitch, I think that's been covered by others and probably for a different time to get into the detail, but there is more than that.
Okay. I'm going to draw a line under this. I think it's been quite a round robin discussion. And I'm going, if I may, to take the two recommendations, one or two together. One, to note the contents of the report, and one, to confirm the reversion of pitch maintenance responsibilities to Seaford Town Council final grounds maintenance contractor following the conclusion of the trial with Seaford Town Football Club. Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor Olivia Honeyman and seconder Councillor Bristow. All in those in favour? Thank you. Any that's you?
That was everyone.
Yeah, that's everyone. So there's no abstentions. Okay. So carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, we'll go back to the previous report. Right, so this is the old agenda item 6, projects and facilities update.
Again, I'm very grateful to Officer Tim for his information. As you can see, the team have highlighted a lot of the content of the work, obviously, is covered through other agenda items, so they've just pulled together 3 key 4 planning items to highlight around Christmas lights, around CCTV, and around health and safety. I'm sorry, I'll pause and let you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much. So, as I say, about what's coming up in the months ahead in relation to Christmas lights, plans around CCTV, and an update around some of the key health and safety work the team are doing. So again, very happy to take questions and comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions and comments from councillors? No? No? Okay. Can I ask then? I didn't quite understand that part of section 1.2. It said we already own a large sum of free operational lights, so options to rent and sell them would not be financially viable. I didn't quite get what that meant. Does that mean we might buy some more and rent it out our previous ones, or I think that's what we meant.
So we do own Christmas lights, but some of them are coming to the end of their life. So I think it would be helpful if we had a look at, do we buy some more to replace those, so they're still owned, or would it be more financially viable to look at renting? It's the ones that we own we pay for to store as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Right, Councillor Richard.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just what the officers just said, interesting. If we've already got some cellar lights, and they've obviously re-rent the ones from Blackhair, is that how you pronounce it?
Blackhair.
Very good, Blackhair. Is there any scope, viability to, or maybe not for this season, but if we've already got some lights, put some lights somewhere else in the town as well? If you know, can we have another version of tonight's elsewhere? Because I don't know, sometimes they're a bit limited just down Broad Street, so is there any scope to extend that anywhere else? That's something I don't know if you obviously could look into it. Probably a bit short time for this year, or maybe for 25. Thank you.
Do you want to?
We could look at it and we could come back to this committee to let you know any options that are viable and some costings for that as well.
We'll be too soon for this year, wouldn't it?
Yeah, this year I don't think we could do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Bristol.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got two questions. The first one, they're both on the health and safety section, section 3. So first of all, on 3.2 about the inspection of the pitch surrounding fence or the pitch perimeter area. I would just like to get clear in my mind how often the health and safety inspections have been, and how often, whether we need to discuss it afterwards, they will be afterwards, after now, because obviously some of the infill has been taken out, and the infill which has largely got the adverts remains. Now there are some bits, obviously that's still degrading, but perhaps at a lesser rate than the other stuff that's been sort of more exposed, if you like. And also I know that there are remedial works to be done to the white railing, but I was actually quite surprised the other day when I went and had a look at the corner that there's some really quite bad corrosion. I was actually quite worried that, you know, let's just say a misplaced kick, probably not by a footballer, could unfortunately have consequences, and I was just wondering what the plan is for that. And you know, I don't know whether the inspections are annually, but I think perhaps they need to be more than annually, especially when we get sort of the bad weather and so on. Are they quarterly? I don't know. If you could tell me, that'd be great. And the other one is 3.9, sorry, on the compostable toilets. They closed temporarily in July because they're open since then, aren't they? Yeah. And we had spoken about them being resited, one to South Hill Barn and one potentially to the Crouch. I just wonder where that's at and whether there's scope to have more of a conversation about the Crouch, because I know the actual sort of fine-tuning of the location could be quite problematic, and we've got various constraints there. Probably the most urgent one, forgive the pun, is the community garden, and their need to have access to a toilet facility. But I also am having increasing concerns at the Ward Council, and having talked to a lot of people, you know, just in daily walks, that because it's quite an urban area, it might actually suffer more than it gives in terms of vandalism and antisocial behaviour and stuff. And I'm just toying with the idea of actually saying, well, maybe we ought to consider putting them both up at South Hill Barn. But obviously that's not a decision for me to make, and I just wonder if that's a conversation worth having, and could we have that after this in an appropriate way with whoever needs to be in that conversation. So just a bit of an update on the grounds. Thanks.
Do you want me to take those?
If you could, yes please.
So with regards to 3.3 and the checking of fences, that has been more of an annual check, but I think we would need to look at increasing those inspections as part of the health and safety inspector's role. So we can take that away from today and make sure that we put those in place. The siting of the opening of the compostable toilets, they were closed in July, and then they were vandalised and entrance was gained. So they have been locked and sealed so that there can be no further entry into those. With regards to reciting, the placement within the crouch will be difficult because there are limited options because it is quite a large unit. So yeah, that has been looked at by the team, and so we can just talk about the placement of that with you. Placing both of them at South Hill Barn, the idea was to put them inside the courtyard itself. I don't think there would be enough room to place both because they're two single units, although they're placed together at the moment. With the ramp, I don't think we'd be able to put both there.
That's really helpful, Shan. Just to add, absolutely, of course, we look really carefully about the crouch, but the council is very mindful of the fact that historically there were toilets in the crouch, and therefore are minded to enable toilets to return to the crouch. Obviously, if they sort of can't, we won't go there. But that's why it's the preference, is to make sure there are facilities in the crouch that's responding to that family need. That's what the council's trying to do.
Any further questions or comments? No? Okay, so we are recommending some notes and comments of content and reports. So you're on
Chair, sorry.
I do apologise.
So you've got on here you say you're going to do 3 quotes for the CCTV. Where will you be getting those from?
We haven't started work on that project yet.
Okay, so I've got a resident that would like to be included in the quotes, if that's okay.
Yes, so we can make it happen.
Just make sure no further comments. Right, okay. Right, so we are recommending some notes for content and reports. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Meek, second please, Councillor Warraven. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Right. Moving on. So this is item, it also says item 6. Anyway, it is about the committee income and expenditure up to the end of July.
Page 20.
Page 20, yeah. Okay. So this is money in and money out.
Yeah, I can speak briefly. I'm very, very grateful to, in her absence, the RFO for her usual comprehensive variance report here. So you have, as you can see, you have the figures and you have the explanation of some of the variances starting on page 30. Sorry, Chair. So yeah, as I was saying, so pages 20, starting on page 22 with the actual figures for the period up till the end of July, and then on page 30 the RFO has listed the key variances with explanations for each of them. So again, with that information provided, very happy to take questions and comments from councillors, Chair. Thank you.
Comments or questions, colleagues? Councillor Bristol?
Thanks, yeah, I've got 3. First one is about cost centre 106, that's the crouch, but this could equally apply to the salts. Item 1073, the pitch hire fees. I believe historically, looking back through, these were broken down a bit, i.e. into main pitch, mini pitch, bowling club rent, so on and so forth. Would it be possible to have a breakdown of that particular income line in the future, please? Just because there have been question marks raised about various aspects to do with it, and I think it would be really good to just see where things are in a little bit finer detail than what we've got at the moment. So that's perhaps even a proposal for the future.
Okay, we'll take that back, Councillor, thank you.
Thanks. And the other 2 things are the Old Town Hall, which I haven't, 119. I don't know whether you're able to tell. Oh, we have some there, but what is the projected income for this year? Because I think it was possibly a bit late getting off the ground there. in terms of our concessions process. Just a bit of an update on that, you know. And the other one that I wanted to ask about was dog bin emptying, which obviously occurs across various locations, particularly in connection with the project that was on the go to replace the bins with LDC and have dual-use bins and increase the volume and all that. Now, I know obviously we've had staff restrictions, shall I say, but I was just wanting a bit of an update on where that's at and any sort of timings or are there any hitches with that going forward, please.
So over to Sharon in terms of any further desire to alter or dog bins?
So they've been ordered and they're waiting for a delivery, and LDC have been working on a rollout programme which they're due to share with us.
Okay, cool. So that might have implications for the costings for the later down the track. Thanks.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Bollingstep Wall says that that's £720 so far and is likely to be double that by the end of the year. It's for storing wood and metal. I mean, this could be unending at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen. Is it necessary to store the wood and the metal? I mean, what if in the fullness of time it's decided to make something completely different there, and we're storing all this stuff for nothing? Do we have an explanation for what we're going to kind of... Is it just how it is?
I think so, Councillor Lee, respectfully. Yeah, there's reasons why we've been advised to keep the materials for a period of time, and that's why storage arrangements have been made for the materials, which obviously we're paying a cost for, as the RFO has shown in the accounts. I think that it may be by the time we come to set our budget in January, we might be able to say whether there'll be any cost for that beyond this financial year.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Councillor Lee.
1066 from income concession. Is it possible to get a breakdown of that per concession, please?
Okay, we'll take that. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, all right. So, this is item 7. I think it's been mislabelled as 6. We're doing 7.24 is agenda item 7, and we are asked to note the contents of the report. Do I have a proposal? Councillor Honeyman, and a seconder, Councillor Bristol. Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous? Yeah, thank you. Right. So we have done, we've covered agenda item 8, and we are now moving to agenda item 9, VE and Armed Forces Day.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, this report tries its best to carefully explain how things are proceeding on obviously massively sensitive topics. It's really important that the Town Council shows its commitment to its civic duties and showing recognition and support for our armed services, hence the D-Day celebrations we had this summer, and hence the plans contained within the report around VE commemorations next May, which will come out before you know it, basically, because it's in May rather than later in the year. It's actually the day that's being celebrated. It's early May, because obviously it was early May 1945 when the original VE Day took place. And therefore, looking at our plans for Armed Forces events next year, as the report explains, in the light of the fact that the Armed Forces Day has become somewhat smaller than it used to be over time. The report sort of explains how, in the light of that, we're focusing our primary energies next year on VE Day. But I hope the report sort of explains how it is we're in that place. And obviously, we're grateful to partners who work with us on these matters, with whom there is careful consultation about how things proceed going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions and comments? Councillor Walraven.
Thank you, Chair. I did receive some comments that we didn't hold Armed Forces Day this year. And but for next year, because we haven't just got VE Day, we've got VJ Day, which is in August.
That's true.
And my thinking is that maybe we could have a church service on the day after Armed Forces Day, which is the last Saturday in June, and you know, have a conversation with the Vicar of St Leonard, preferably. If we could do something like that for next year, and then because that sits nicely in between VE Day and VJ Day, so they both could be, and I think that can be something which the Armed Forces Committee can organise without involving officers' time, especially you know, with everything being with the workload you've got at the moment. That will be when I call for a meeting, which I've waited till after this. That is a suggestion I could put forward. I don't know how people would feel about that.
Okay. I think you were first, Councillor, and then Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, just listening to what Councillor Warburton was saying, yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think there's not necessarily right or way trying to work out exactly when we do all these dates. And if we had all three, it would be a lot of work for the officers to organise three events. And this particular year, just having the one event down on the Seaford when we did, I think for D-Day survey, I think that worked very well. And you know, and Armed Forces, they wouldn't ratify afterwards, was it? So in that sense, we you know, we had to make that decision. I know sometimes they keep both, so maybe that sometimes that was maybe sometimes a bit difficult, but maybe they had different budgets for that, whatever. Going back to next year, yes, I can understand what Councillor Warburton is trying to say. One way or another, yes, obviously, VJ Day was basically after both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki were affected in mid-August, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so whether or not we would be able to do a service around there if the other option of what Councillor Warburton was trying to do in the middle of that, I don't know, there's just a bit of scope for doing, you know, to study on Mark VJ Day. I think the idea, I don't know, Armed Forces Day and D-Day for next year, VE Day and D, what's the difference in time again? The distance, is it a few weeks again? VE Day and
8th of May to August.
2 months.
no, sorry, for Armed Forces Day is normally in July, isn't it?
No,
June. I said so about a month from
May,
basically.
June, August.
about 6 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it's no way the one, but I like the idea of getting if St Leonard's, which is the parish church of Seaford effectively anyways, wants to get involved in, I think that it would be a good option. And the dates, I'd obviously let Council Warburton and the Rever Committee sort of get to fine detail. Thank you.
Do you want to reply?
I just want to come back to say that also going forward in further years, Eastbourne has got so big with their Armed Forces Day, and I think that's taken an awful lot from Armed Forces Day. And it's we get people come for the parade, the service, and then they disappear. So it has drastically altered over the years. So I think, yeah, we do need to look at something much smaller for future years. That's my suggestion for next year. Sorry. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Markham.
Yes, okay. Yeah, great. Really like all the discussions. I was at D-Day, as most of you know. I was a bit disappointed because there weren't any veterans there. Well, there probably were, but there wasn't any veterans I could see or get involved with at that point. But I really hope that that gets sorted out next year. What I'm looking at, though, is going back to the budget. Sorry about that, but there's a variance of £8,000, and I'm wondering whether that gets carried over or a bit confused by that bit of the budgets. I know we've approved it. I'm just looking at it because for
We
the
have
actual
an
year,
agenda item.
yeah, it's on page 28 for me, but I'm not sure if that's the... It's only to say that there was quite a big variance on the annual budget for D-Day was 10,000, but the actual date to year was only 1,900, so there was a bit of, you know, a bit more money left. I was wondering if that gets carried over, or how does that work?
So we're talking about the budget.
Yeah,
for
for
this.
next
From the
year.
previous years.
I'm wondering whether, because we seem to have a bit in it. So I wondered whether if that's the case, whether we can use it to support these events. And maybe if we have got it, because I know there's some nodding going on, if we have got it, it would be lovely to think a little bit out of the box on just how we could support the event that you're talking about with the church, but then maybe have something else as well. That's kind of...
I think we're going to have to check with the RFO about
Yeah,
that.
because I don't
think
know
we're
why.
immediate answers
Yeah.
looking at the money.
It's just there, so I can't...
Yeah, okay, sure.
Wonder whether it disappears in April or whether it comes back again.
Yeah, we'll get Lucy to confirm, and if that is the case, she can tell us what that is as well.
Councillor Dubai, did you have a question?
When I first came to Seaford, there was D-Day celebrations in the Martello field. It was huge. There were rides for the kids, there was a band playing, there were stalls everywhere. And this year, what you're saying is, it's now going to be raising a flag. Now, it doesn't seem like an awful lot to be going on when we've been paying for an events officer extra hours. And there's nothing to say in here what you're going to be doing next year to, you know, is all that effort going to be put into next year, or is it going to be raising a flag and blowing a trumpet next year? I don't think it seems fair. And is there any connections with New Haven and Peacehaven to do maybe a joint thing together to boost it a little bit, other than just raising a flag? Thank you.
Okay.
Any response to that?
There's comments later.
Okay, any further comments or questions? No? Okay. So, I think I'll take the first two together and then the third at the end. So we're recommended to note the contents in the report and agree the planned VE Day commemorations. Can I take those together? Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Walroden, second. Councillor Honeyman. Okay, all those in favour? One abstention.
So we've got 6 in favour and 2 abstaining.
Two
Yeah.
One abstention? Yeah. Any against? Yeah. That's okay.
I'm so sorry, just to be clear for my minutes, does that proposal include what Councillor Raven has suggested about the service?
Does that need officer time?
I think
I thought it didn't.
that can be item 3 and have
Yes. I'm taking 3 separately.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm taking 1 and 2 together.
Yes, that's fine. Sorry, yeah.
And then 3 separately. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I was, so have we got the numbers for that?
Yes.
Yes.
So it was
Okay.
6,
Yeah.
7 in favour.
So I was going to, we're being asked to agree that Seaford Town Council commemorates Armed Forces Day by raising a dedicated flag. And I want to
anyway.
Pardon?
We do that anyway.
Yeah.
The Armed Forces Day flag is always raised on
Yeah.
Armed Forces Day.
Do you want to add anything to this in view of your comments, Councillor?
If it
Maybe I can
If
come
it
back.
helps, if we're thinking about staffing, I'm sure this would fit with the civic side,
Yeah.
and that we would be able, I mean, we already work with St Leonard's when we're looking at the Mayor's concert, Christmas concerts and things like that. So in terms of just that very short bit of liaison that will need to happen and maybe sharing some communications, I think that would be possible if we want to add that into this. If you're going to chair a committee who takes forward that side and have that communication with James at St Leonard's, we can then do the sort of sharing the information side.
Right, okay. So it's to agree that the Town Council commemorates Armed Forces Day by raising a dedicated flag.
I've got to come back because I must say, so if you let me, Chair, I can see what Councillor de Bus was trying to say. It sounds a bit flippant, raising a dedicated flag. I was a bit more than that. But you were similar lines like Sussex Day in November. Is it November?
No,
June. When Sussex Day? Yeah, June. Is it similar on those lines, like a flag on the Martello Tower area? Is it more of that, or do you envisage a bit more? I don't know what it really envisages, because that's a little bit more. That's a little bit of an event, isn't it? Get town cry there. I don't know what you mean by just raising dedicated flags. To me, it's a bit simplistic, maybe. But I mean, I know there's various flags go up automatically, as we know, as the civic side of what the town council does, isn't there? Various by the memorials. I'm on the wrong town. Sorry. The memorials. So there's the flag there and Martello Tower. Do they go hand in hand? There's different flag standards, isn't there? I'm digressing on our chair. So maybe we could talk about flags on another occasion, but
it would be at the War Memorial.
Yeah, the War Memorial and at Martello, it's both, isn't it, basically?
Sometimes we've got a flag policy, so sometimes they're at both, sometimes they're just at the War Memorial.
Okay. So what I was going to say is, when you say dedicated flag putting up, it's a bit more detail than just putting a flag up, isn't it? Yeah. You're going to invite various people and all
So
the rest.
that would be a little sorry.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know, it's tough to think about really, but I think as Councillor de Bus said, it's a little bit simplistic. And I think you have to take into consideration whether to say what's going on in Eastbourne. That is a big event now, and there's no point organising something huge when something...
Yes, I think we're going in the wrong direction. You suggest an amendment or something about ceremony as well. It sounds a little bit short, but it doesn't really say that's everything. But this is the proposal, and no one has added to it during the debate.
Yeah. So with that, are we saying we want to add to the raising the flag part? So we want to add that a raising of the flag and ceremony, and we've also got the service that will be happening at St Leonard's Church.
Yeah, sorry. I kind of agree with what everything said. I do think there's a little bit more than that. I think what we're trying to do is possibly preempt ourselves. It's only September and this is going to be next June, whenever. I'm sure if we thought about it, we could come back to another community services and get something else approved. So I'm just slightly worried about this proposal that's slightly narrow, and what will happen is we'll say we've agreed that and that's all we're doing, and I would hope that there's something in the proposal, and sorry I don't have the words in my head, but I know I might, that actually just extends that really. It's not about larger scale events, but it's about a little bit more than just the memorial. I do think we need to give it a little bit of thought, that's all. And we seem to be rushing it through slightly here, and it's only September, even though I know we've had lovely ideas from Councillor Raven.
Councillor Ward, are there any further suggestions?
My suggestion I've got to put before the Armed Forces Committee. I mean, they may say yay or nay, I don't know. But I think we need to put that before the committee, and then for me to report back to Community Services.
That sounds like a plan to me. So shall we say to agree the Town Council commemorates Armed Forces Day by raising a flag and liaising... Sorry.
I was just going to say, Chair, maybe we could just defer number 3. We don't have to agree, we always raise the flag anyway. I mean,
yes,
we
it's
can
nothing
just
new.
defer that. It's nothing new, really. Sorry, I felt, Chair, that it was in relation to what was said under point 1.2, which was the officers were recommending to raise a dedicated flag rather than organising larger scale events. That was as a cost saving exercise and in reference to the fact of what had been happened this year. But could we leave that whole thing till another time?
Right. Do I have a proposer for removing item 3? Deferring. Sorry. So a proposer and a secretary. So Councillor Lee seconded by Councillor Markwell to remove and to defer item 3. Defer item 3 of agenda item 9.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
I think it was just
Get a vote on it.
Okay. We'll vote on that. Those in favour?
That's fine.
Unanimous. Thank you. Right. Okay. Item 10, badging assets trial. Who's going to talk to this one?
Yeah. I think this is to inform councillors that we wish to proceed with the badging trial on our assets. And for some reason this packet has been actually got all the things. Please bear with me.
So it's 39.
What page?
39. Thank you. For some reason I was given a pack without page 39, I'm so sorry. I remember reading the book and thinking, I'm sure I read more than this. Yeah, so I don't know why my pack's not got page 39,
Moving on.
Life is always full of surprises. I'm very grateful again for the office for putting together this report. As you can see, it sets out that we'd like to, partly I think perhaps help that we are recognising our 25th anniversary, to start the residents, help them to notice a bit more that we own a lot of stuff, frankly. And so it's something we should be really recognising and celebrating. I think also it helps identify the identity of buildings and helps people sort of maybe feel a bit more attached and positively towards them if they're so obviously badged and owned by their local council. So that's the project that's come forward. The report contains details of sightings and different options for cost depending upon the materials that have been used. But as I say, will be designed based upon our 25th anniversary logo. And then section 5 sets out how we'll go forward from here if councils are happy for this project to be taken forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I've got the page for that.
Right. Councillor Markwell?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, very interesting. Just wondering about officer time on this. So 5.2, monitoring and evaluation. During the time period, officers will monitor the effectiveness of the badge, increasing awareness of sexual exposure, and feedback will be collected from. So if you're going to monitor and evaluate, you need to know how many are coming now, and then you can match how many have come when you put the badge up. That's the starting point for any research, really. So I was just wondering how that will happen, because this could take a considerable amount of officer time, which we're quite concerned about at the moment, because it's about to start in October. So is this going to be a priority or something that we really need to do? Is it really necessary? It seems like a lovely idea, but in my box it's a lovely idea, but I'm not sure how much it's a priority idea for the town council at the moment, when we actually know we're creaking at the seams in terms of being able to get work done. So I do think it's lovely, I think it's a nice thing to do, but that's where I would leave it, that it's a nice thing to do, and I think we need to be very, very careful what we decide to do, because this could take, unless you've actually got an absolutely clear way of monitoring it, and it's not going to take you any time at all, which I think is probably unlikely. I just wonder how that's going to work and how much officer time that will take. Thank you.
Any comments from officers? Okay, over to you, Chair. You don't worry. Okay, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's interesting what Councillor Markwell was saying. Yes, I mean, you obviously do mark up various sites, especially like the Crouch, Montello, Fields, and so on. That's Seaford Town Council, so you do have signage for that anyway. In that respect, so you already got some examples of at Seaford Town Council, and you could probably extend that if you really wanted to by somewhere maybe some of the outside assets further out of the town centre area, like Norman Sow and Princess Drive as well, Total Village Green and so on. You get a bit more Oh, signposting that today, that's Seaford Town Council and so on. But going back to the thing in hand with what Councillor Martwell was saying, yes, I mean, when you mean a badge, you just basically mean the logo with the 25th. I don't know what sort of size that's going to be. Is it going to be consistent for them all? Or, for example, the one at Southfield Barn, would you put that on the building itself? So you say it's Seaford Town Council, would you actually say it's Southfield Barn, and then the logo, or is it just the logo? And I know, second question, the logos are temporary, because I think once we get into 25, where we're 26th year, so you would then revert back to our normal sort of STC logo anyway. So a few questions there to think about. Thank you.
Any reply, or should we move on?
I wasn't sure whether we were going to be using the 25th logo, because this is something that we wanted to look at rolling out for a longer period after a trial. So then we'd have to remove those signs and rebadge. So I would have been recommending using our standard logo for that. And maybe not naming them that this is Southfield Barn site, but this is property or owned by, or whatever wording is appropriate, that it's Seaford Town Council's asset.
Can I just add to what Sharon was saying, is that then leads into your previous discussions about communication and giving that information to the public, who they need to come to if they have a question about certain sites. So it's about just us being more present in the community, showing people what we own.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice idea. I think it's a really good idea. I take on board what's been said, 25 years. I mean, people have things saying 25 years and it can last, for another 5 or 6 years, and you don't necessarily take it down. I think it's really good to show what our assets are. I rather agree with the Mayor that I don't think it's good to try and do a trial about it. I think you either name them, or you either say this is our property, or you don't. I don't see how you can monitor whether it's having an effect or not. I mean, people, you do it, and it's a statement saying this is our property. But I think if you do it, I think it should be an enduring sign, whatever you decide on. And I also think you should have a QR code explaining the history of it, how it's relevant to Seaford or something like that. So that otherwise you've got another sign, big sign next saying, this is the south, the old town hall, this is what used to be there, But you could have a good explanation on a QR code, if you want to. But I do agree that I think it would take officer time. I don't quite know how you monitor it and really know if it was effective or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bristol and Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Having listened to a lot of comments from all tables in the room, like most people, I think ultimately it's a great idea and it's something I would like to see us work towards in the future. I question whether the timing is right. Just going down the sort of list of assets in phase 1, 2.2, the sort of trial ones, I've sort of put a dash next to the ones which are having some changes done to them in some sort of shape or form, or there are significant snagging issues or problems. And I think, given the staff resource at the moment, and if we start putting whatever type of signs on stuff, whilst I ultimately think it's a good idea, I think it could generate a lot of emails and phone calls and communication, which could take up quite a lot of time at the moment. My suggestion would be to wait until these snagging issues are sorted out, wait till we're happy with things and we're confident that things are as they should be, and then go forward. So if we were to vote this through, I'd probably say about 50% of those assets could be in a trial and discard about 50%. But actually, my feeling at the moment is that I think it's, sometimes when you go, especially like to towns in the West Country or something, you sort of you're greeted with, welcome to, I don't know, Cirencester or wherever it happens to be. And you sort of feel like you're going somewhere where people who live there care about where they live, and that's conveyed through the signage. And I think that's a really good thing to have, and I would actually love us to have more, especially along the seafront, sort of like, we're proud of our town and whilst you're here, don't drop your litter, because it's not the done thing in Seaford, you know. There's kind of like, it's these subliminal messages. I know it's not going to stop everyone, but it would be great to celebrate what we have in Seaford and what we achieve together in Seaford. But I question the timing at the moment for those two reasons. And yes, again, with logo stuff, you have to think about the longevity and so on. So I would put this in a very reachable position on a shelf at the moment and look at it from time to time and then think about when it's the right time, if that makes sense.
Just a quick suggestion, on the assets page of the website, it has a spreadsheet of assets and that you can click on, but could it have pictures of the assets and say these are what accounts? That's a quick fix.
Just to come back on that, that's something very much on our wish list, and that is something that we would like to work on. We want to try to have a portfolio really on each asset going forward with a picture, updates.
Well, just start with a picture and a title and then add to it when we can. You don't have to have the whole thing all in one go.
Very pragmatic. So, any further?
Yes. Sorry, I was just going to add that I think the concept of this is a good idea, because I know as being a district councillor and a town councillor, people often get very muddled up as to who owns what. And I think this type of thing would actually save a lot of that confusion. So I think, not from a need to know from district council in town, but I think then that way everyone knows where to look straight away. So I do think the concept of this is a good idea.
So, I was thinking that maybe we could have an amendment simply to take the timescale away. Would that fit?
Yeah, you could even to approve the proposed badging trial for Seaford Town Council assets at an appropriate time.
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I have do you have a further comment, Councillor?
Yeah, sorry, I do apologise. Yes, only because of the design, that it doesn't really then omit design 3, removing the 25th anniversary logo. So I don't know whether you want, that needs to be in the proposal or not, or whether people, I mean, it's going to be obvious to us if we start it next year. But
yes, I think it is important.
I did think that, you know, it's a different set of councillors at some point and whatever, and it doesn't get done.
It needs to make sense, yeah.
It needs to make sense.
So we're taking away the timescale and we're taking away the 25th logo, in order to make it easier for officers to fit in on a pragmatic basis. Councillor Richard,
again, I mean, thanks to some of that, it's not, I'm not repeating anything. Can we, the logo, go back to the logo, I think the logo is quite cryptic in a way, so it will have the Seaford Town Council words on it as well. I don't know if you have the italic version, don't you? I don't know if it's going to be on a location somewhere, it's got to be visible, isn't it? So that's something to think about. And I think if you were really doing I mean, obviously appropriate time, but you know, spring of next year might be good, something like from spring onwards, when people come out from, you know, the long dark winter, you know, maybe that could be an option, but obviously it depends on commitment for officers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Bristol,
Yeah, I was just going to
Councillor
point out that in the Salts and Crouch stakeholder groups, we've been variously talking about effectively re-signing those green spaces and perhaps others. And I know I think it was this committee, we spoke about the Martello Fields against, what were we going to call it? But it'll always be the Martello Fields to me. But we were going to talk about signage, you know, and so I think, and I'm sure officers have got this on their radar to dovetail the two together. And perhaps the timing of this might be better done closer to the timing of that stuff, so that it could be more cost effective and just generally more streamlined. And if, as far as the amendment goes, the recommendation, I would also proffer that we remove about 50% of 2.2 as a phase. If there's going to be a trial phase, I think that's too much for trial phase. And I think that should be decided nearer the time on, you know, a feeling of what's kind of ready to go and what has had all its snagging issues sorted out. So that's what I would propose.
I was just going to say that because there's no way of monitoring this, I really don't want to be approving spend of £2,000 for something that may or may not be effective. We've just got no idea. So I think we should just defer this, the same as we've deferred the armed forces there.
So I am moving to.
What about to approve the proposed badging trial for Seaford Town Council as council assets an appropriate time, noting the comments of council. Because you've made some comments about it.
And then I'll need to detail those notes with
Okay.
the resolution.
So what do you want to? So what do councils want to do?
Council.
Just a quickie, can the design of the logo come back to this committee at that time, if we defer in it?
In which case, in terms of resources, it would be easier to defer this and bring it back, taking all of your comments on board and presenting this when we've got a particular officer assigned to it.
Yes. Okay. Councillor Markwell.
I was going to say exactly the same thing, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, we are recommending to defer the proposed badging trial. Yeah. Do I have a proposer?
Councillor Bell's proposed that.
And a seconder.
That's Mark seconded it.
Okay. All those in favour?
That's everyone's
Unanimous.
vote.
Thank you. Right. On home strokes, this is item agenda 11. Yeah, it is 11. And this is the sponsorship update. Who's going to talk?
Yeah, so I think what was on the mind of the head of assets and projects and services was to bring council some transparency about what's been going on with sponsorship since the proposed hours were agreed last September. And obviously when that decision was made, that was for a 12-month period. But as we've explained in the report, as I'm sure as councillors understand, the council, as you know, you've had the opportunity to interact with Carlton last week in terms of the overall staff review and the overall structure. And so that overall staff review and structure, you'll be deciding through that how you're going to do sponsorship. So what we're bringing you this was the committee, because this came from this committee, this report explains what's happened in the last year, so you get your transparency, but the actual delivery of sponsorship will be determined through the staff review. I hope I've explained that successfully, Chair. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Right. Comments or questions? Councillor Markwell.
Thank you very much. I was just wondering what our sponsorship status was this year. We're talking about a post that's had support in the role for sponsorship for 12 months. I was just kind of wondering what the outcome of that role has been for us, presumably because that staff member has been paid to do that job, and whether it was cost effective or not.
That's what's contained within the report.
Well, I don't see any costs. Just wondering what the costs were.
Well, I mean, that was after what the council agreed last year in the proposal. What's in the budget?
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Richard Hyman.
Just interesting to see what before about the badging assets project. I find that a little bit interesting. You know, I don't just talk about that, but I think if we were having our logo and then you had a sponsorship next to it, I think that would be completely inappropriate. That's just my own initial views on that. Thank you.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I was slightly confused actually following on from Councillor Markwell, because my understanding was that there was approximately a year's trial and then we would effectively be presented with what I'll crudely term as a cost-benefit analysis. And this just seems to be going forward with it, which I may not be opposed to, but I don't feel at the moment that I've got that foundation in terms of what it's brought in and what the projections are that it would bring in or where we are on that curve at all.
Well, as I say, this is the information that the head of assets project services has put together in the light of the fact that the proposed is part of the staff review process.
No further detail.
Could I come back? So
Councillor
for the next meeting, could we perhaps have some financial figures? I know there's an application in process, what's the timescales for that, what would that bring, has it been successful, how about the other sponsorship stuff, what are the projections? Could we have a bit of a forecast, please?
So that information was supposed to be brought back to the Personnel Committee, who approved that post for 12 months. And Louise did promise in that meeting, because I raised it, that she would bring that full cost benefit analysis forward. Now, I'm not on that committee anymore. As far as I know, it hasn't been submitted, and this report is inadequate and it doesn't give us that information. So my suggestion will be that it goes back to personnel and that information is presented as promised to the Personnel Committee. Because we can't carry on paying for a post that is not self-financing, and that's what we were promised. And this just says £5,000. Well, that's not enough. I can't imagine that covers the staffing costs.
And I think that £5,000 is what hopes to be raised with the
With the Christmas budget this year, but I mean, I think the 5,000 probably does cover the staffing cost, because it was 1 day a week on something of an officer post. But I totally those points taken. The Personnel Committee meeting in early October, so I imagine that will be where that information will be going to. But we'll make sure it's taken up that they need more information. As I say, I wanted to make sure you had this transparency now so you can see what it is you want to do next, but being mindful of the fact that you've been asked to consider your whole staffing structure as part of a staff review, so the sponsorship officers wrapped into that rather than this decision being made now. So that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The other aspect of this, I appreciate what's in the report, it's good to have what's in here, but another bit that I was hoping to see was a more sort of developed sponsorship policy or protocol, how we were going to go about things. We had discussions about sort of the values to the town council, I won't go into all the marketing and sort of the partnership jargon, but, sort of how we were going to approach it, how we were going to not just approach, but ultimately select sponsorship partners and so on, and that sort of background to things as well as the financial. So I would be very keen to see that as soon as it's feasible, really. Because I think it's an exciting prospect and it certainly should be looked into, but just at the moment I feel a bit gappy in what I'm seeing, but thank you for what is there.
Okay, any further comments from councillors? Okay, so I'm suggesting that the committee is recommended to note the contents of the report with the comments noted by councillors.
I think usually that's sufficient.
Yes.
For this feedback, I think it's much sufficient.
So is the report going to go to personnel?
Yes, I think that's what we want, is something specific.
No, it's not part of the staff review process. It was what was agreed back in October.
Sorry, just to be really clear, there is a report scheduled for the Personnel Committee about sponsorship.
No, it's not that. It's the report we were promised by Louise that did a cost-benefit analysis of what the post has done from appointment to date. And that needs to go to personnel to close the loop.
I'm aware that there is a report scheduled for personnel about this, so I don't know anything further about it, but it is scheduled for personnel on 3rd of October.
Does that answer your questions?
I'm not sure because I have no idea what that report is.
It's not written yet, so I don't know.
Okay. But that hopefully will answer or address the question that can't be answered.
Well, now that you know what we're expecting, can you make sure it's in that report?
Councillor Mark.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to be clear, following on from Councillor Dubar and the queries that have been raised, often the discussion is not that full in the minute. I think if we have raised about 6 issues, I've written them all down, but that's not good enough. I think they need to be in the minute. If they're not in the minute, there's absolutely no audit trail that we've had this discussion at all. If we just say we've discussed it and there is some report that's going to personnel, but we're not saying what it is we've discussed and what our concerns are, then we can't close the loop on this and make sure that it is in a report that hasn't been written yet. And I do think it needs to be then, that report should refer to this minute item, you know, this agenda item in that report, so there's a trail for it. Otherwise, I think it drops out somewhere when we go back and want to find it later, and I think that happens. So I do think that if we're going to minute it, it needs to be minuted what we're saying and what we're concerned about, which is the role and the cost-benefit analysis. Just needs to be in the minutes. If it's in the minutes, then that's fine, because then it can be taken through.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, so just a bit of detail in the minutes, that's fine.
It's just to make sure it's captured
Yeah.
So you can
and not
follow it
just a
through.
general description, because these are quite specific
Yeah.
timed requests, are they not? Okay. So just to confirm, you're happy as long as they're in the minutes, you don't want an extra amendment, is that right, Councillor Marvel?
Yes,
Yeah.
as long as they are, yes.
Okay.
I'm sure they are.
Well, we'll check, I can check in the minutes, but I mean, you'll check and you're happy.
It's an amendment.
Would you like an amendment?
Yes.
Sorry, I should talk to you, I should talk to the chair.
Yes.
Maybe Chair, an amendment will clarify the issue, because it seems to be quite a specific issue. Sorry, I haven't got the amendment in my head at this precise moment, but if there is one, then that might be quite useful for us. Thank you.
Right. Should we say note the contents of the report?
With the request that.
Yes.
With the
Yeah.
request of that.
Can you refer to the personnel committee coming up?
The personnel committee consider a cost benefit analysis of sponsorship, wasn't it?
Yep.
That looks pretty.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Personnel committee consider a cost benefit analysis.
Right, okay, you've got that, you don't want me to repeat it, it's getting late in the evening, okay? Right, okay, so do I have a proposer for Councillor Richard Hyman, seconded Councillor Duval, all those in favour? Unanimous, so no abstentions, no votes against. Thank you very much. So, that is it, we are at the end. So,